My guest for this episode is Sami Gardner. Sami is a career coach who specializes in helping creative and technical professionals develop their dream careers. She redesigned her own career to travel the world and has helped job seekers from San Francisco to São Paulo. When she's not coaching, she writes sci-fi and fantasy novels. You should check them out. Sami believes that if you kickstart your career, you kickstart your life. This is Invincible Career, and I'm Larry Cornett. Welcome to the show, Sami.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Larry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, folks probably don't know that you and I originally met, I think, in an entrepreneur group that many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, you had me on your podcast, the Career Kickstart Show. If folks want to check that out. Thank you again for having me on that, by the way.
It was a great conversation. It's something that I like to send to a lot of my clients and especially some of my students who haven't really lived through a recession or a pandemic. My college students who are freaking out. I'm like, listen to this guy. He's seen some
I've seen
stuff.
A few recessions. Yeah. I'm old enough. I've been through a few of those. Yeah, exactly. So speaking of the business that you're in, can you share with the listeners a little bit more about your career coaching business, where you focus, and who you tend to work with?
Yeah. So for those who are listening who don't know, I am a career specialist. My focus, where I feel like my secret sauce really is being the person who goes more into the strategies of how to get the job that you want than necessarily going into deep dives on career clarity. I can do both, but I really like helping people with those really practical tips and tricks to get them going to what they want. In my private career coaching, I specialize with a lot of UX designers. I just like how
that's my background. Yeah.
Well, I enjoy them. It's that
cool
part where you have the techie, but also the creative. There's always a fun session. I mean, I've worked with everybody from like homeless runaway teens to VPs and insurance, but I really do enjoy UX designers, so I focus on them. And I also teach a career development course at the University of Arizona as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. How long you been doing that?
I've been doing that since the pandemic started. Well, before the pandemic started. It was something that I was in negotiations for because I write resumes by day, but by night I like to write novels and fiction and stuff. And I've been trying to figure out a way to add, to take things off my plate, to make more room for writing. Because when I became self-employed, it was this rush of freedom that I really controlled my income. I controlled how I met clients, how I organized my day. And I came in with the intention that I was going to take control of my schedule, give myself more time for the things that I like to do, like travel and writing. I got really into doing the digital nomad scene. So I did sort of like a triangle of migration between Arizona, Europe, and, Brazil, South America. So I really loved that. The thing is that I got really into building my business. So I was that person at like the meetup being like, let me tell you about my funnel, bro. And then after about like a year, I was like, oh my God, I don't have a personality anymore. I have a business. and that worried me, Larry. That worried me so much.
I might be guilty of the same thing.
Which you need that when you're in the beginning, when you need to have that focus to like make things, launch yourself. Because we met both through Kim Luna, who is a brand strategist, great lady and everything like that. And I took so much of her philosophy that done is better than perfect. Let's see where it goes. And I had a mission where for like a year or two, I would try to launch some new product, service, podcast, webinar. I try to launch something every month. So I was constantly creating and it was great. And I was speaking in other countries and I was doing all these really cool things. but I was burning out. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
I
it. I
bet.
was burning out and I didn't actually achieve my mission. Like the goal wasn't a business. The goal was to have freedom and I got kind
Right,
of
right, yeah.
lost in the middle part.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of like a tangent getting on this, but part of before the pandemic started and I had been accepted, really surprisingly, for a scholarship to a writing retreat in France. Now,
Oh, wow.
I'm going to brag a little bit because this never happened to me, Larry.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
so sorry to everybody who's listening who's like, wow, this lady's flexing all over this podcast. But this was in a medieval castle.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was like a month where we just
That's so
wrote
cool.
and walked around and ate like it was in the south of France, so we ate like really good food. It was amazing. And it made me realize that I got accepted for this with this guy who PhD in literature. He helps people with, publishing and making your own writing career. And I realized that I had this goal that I hadn't done anything with, you know. So after that month where I actually was able to take, work that I had been kind of puttering away on for a long time but never did
Yeah.
anything with, I had it all up and ready to publish. He helped me set up my author brand and everything. And I realized, hey, I've done a lot of things on the bucket list. I've traveled, I've done my own business, I've reinvented my life in different ways. But the thing I've always been scared to do, which people were surprised because like, you're the person who like will travel alone to Morocco and
Yeah.
like you worked with like inner city homeless youth for years. Like, what are you
Right,
scared
right.
of? And I was scared to put my work out there,
Sure. I get that.
so
Yeah.
so that's part of how I started working for the U of A was I wanted to get out of that bust and boom cycle of always having a
Hmm.
launch. Always having a launch and always having to market. And you do the cycle of where you market a bunch
Yeah.
and then you get a bunch of clients and you can't market. So then when you get back to like where everything's
Right.
steady, you got to put out a bunch of content because you forgot to market while you were working. And I was stuck in that loop
Sure.
where it affected even when I was traveling, where like I would be
Mm,
somewhere lovely like Lisbon, but I'd be like a weekend warrior where I'm like, sorry guys, I
yeah.
can't go to the beach because I gotta finish this webinar that I'm writing, and
I
that
know.
blows. I want to be on the
Yeah.
beach.
I remember a week, it was a couple of days. I was in Manhattan and I was so excited. And then I got stuck with this huge project that I had to finish. And I sat in a hotel room for 2 days straight and did nothing fun in Manhattan, like working on this thing. I was like, this isn't what's supposed to happen when I'm traveling. This was not fun.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, I know that you asked the who, what, and where, but for me, especially with the pandemic, one of the benefits that it's been for me was that it's really made me because I don't like standing still. I was like having something, and it's forced
Yeah.
me to. It's forced me to
Sure.
be very much reevaluate how I've worked,
Yeah.
how I've, set up my business, and if I actually want to continue in the same way that I have been,
Yeah.
and I'm
Right.
still in
Yeah.
some ways asking myself those questions. So I found that having these contracts with schools like the university, also like
Yeah.
tech boot camps and stuff like that, have been so much more helpful getting these bigger contracts so I can focus more on what actually is important for me. That's where
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
journey this year. I don't know about your 2020,
Yeah.
but mine,
Yeah.
that's
It's
what
making me
mine's been.
question a lot of things. Yeah. Well, it's funny. It seems like pretty much everybody in the working world is questioning what they're doing and if they want to go back to an office, if they want to keep working in the same job, that there's more to life. I mean, it's really made people aware of how precious life is, I think, more than ever before. And I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but a lot of the people I'm talking with, kind of the incoming clients, there are people are like, I don't want to keep putting off what I always dreamed of doing in my life. So I'm trying to figure out a plan to get me there. Because
Yes.
this last year has made me realize it's like, I don't want to go through something like that again, or, not live my full life and not have followed something that's more meaningful to me. What are you hearing from people when you're talking with them? What are people dealing with right now in this job market?
Yeah, I feel like I think because I see it through that sort of millennial lens,
Yeah.
where and now that I'm working with all these Gen Zs who honestly they call me ma'am, and they don't get any of my jokes. Anyway, like I gotta really be careful with my references with these young people.
Yes,
But
yes, I know.
but I'm working with them, and it's been interesting to see um, this um, this idea almost not against career ambition,
Hmm.
but understanding why are we accumulating these educations or
Sure.
these
Yeah.
goals, and figuring out, okay, am I trying to do like some trendy career because I want to impress somebody, or is this what my parents wanted me to do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're also seeing, and for my clients who are older, they have families and mortgages. A lot of them dealt with layoffs where
Yeah.
through no fault of their own. And we all know that last spring, there were some companies who released people because
Yeah.
they had a board of directors that was scared or something. And then a month later, they're
Yep.
trying to bring people back on,
Yeah. I
you
saw a lot of
know?
that. Yep.
Yeah. So first, a lot of my clients who had to deal with that, that was a big wake up call for them, where they had given a lot of time and energy, especially some of these folks were integral for some of these startups even beginning,
Sure.
So I had some folks who were kind of bitter, very much so, trying to be like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
do we reapproach going back into this new chapter, and what do I actually want from this? Because we have learned, whether it's mortality, whether it's the economy, whether it is, the company, you really like, there's not certainties, This
No, never.
was
That's right.
and sometimes you think something like the pandemic, which seems like a black swan event until you find out more, and then you found there's a bunch of, eggheads who were like, "No, we were talking about this for a long time. We've been watching this
Oh,
bats.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
thought something was up."
We knew it
And
was inevitable. Yeah.
yeah, so we have people who are looking at things being like, I am disillusioned. But I've also seen
Yeah.
people, because they've lost different things, they've kind of walked through a fire in a way, and they're like, okay,
Hmm.
that wasn't that bad to lose my job,
Sure.
It was
Yeah.
stressful, it was upsetting, I didn't like it, but through that fire through their lives, they also have space for things. And it leaves the question, what am I going to put there?
Right. Right. Yeah. I think going through something like that makes you stronger. I mean, it does. It's not fun. It's painful. But getting laid off and coming back from that, or losing a job and finding a new job, or starting a business out of necessity and saying, oh, I can make a living if I have to, it makes you more resilient. It makes you stronger. So I think a lot of people are discovering that they could get through pretty bad things. And I think they also discovered this remote work thing isn't as bad as they initially thought. A lot of people were complaining right off the bat, like, oh, I can't stand this. I miss my coworkers. I want to go to the office. I don't like working at home. And about 3 to 4 months in, they're like, huh, it's kind of nice not commuting. And I'm saving a ton of money on food and I can exercise again. It's like, maybe this isn't all bad. So now I'm seeing kind of the other side of it, where people are being asked to come back to an office. So it's coming soon, and they're resisting. They're like, I don't think so. I have
Yeah.
a taste of that lifestyle like you've experienced, obviously, and I've been doing for years, where the flexibility and being able to work wherever you want, it's like kind of hard to give that up once you've had a taste of it.
And for certain jobs, like being in an office was a hindrance,
Oh
to
yeah, totally.
like if
For
you
you said UX, totally a hindrance for UX. It's not
Mhm.
fun to be in an office when you're a designer. I mean, I designed for many years and it was hard to get stuff done. It really was.
What I'm looking forward to is, even though some people, the return to the office is there, what I like is that we're having a lashback against the open concept in those
Yeah.
community tables.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Facebook has a whole bunch of those.
oh my gosh, I know that like sometimes that can be good, but when you need, like, my job is mostly calls.
Yeah.
I'm the most annoying person in an open concept office. Like,
Yeah. Be on the phone all day.
I would have to hide somewhere. I'd
Yeah.
never be at my desk. I'd be in one of those like hot little
Yeah.
like igloos that all the startups want to have,
Oh
like little.
yeah. The phone booths. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, sweating, like
Oh, they're
pop.
horrible. They're
Oh
horrible.
no, like for me, it was.
Yeah.
I wanted to visit on occasion, but like my day
Yeah.
to day,
Exactly.
like I'm not adding
Yeah.
anything. You guys are distracting me.
It's totally true. It's totally true. So I want to rewind the clock a little
Mhm.
bit and talk about your career path because I noticed you have an advanced degree in library and information science, and I was wondering, were you initially planning on a career as a librarian or going down that path, and then at some point you switched gears?
Yes. Well, when I was a little girl, I originally wanted to be a writer, and and I always loved librarians because they were the keepers of the books, and I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is a cool job. And I've also always been kind of like an old person. So I noticed that all the librarians that I knew, like, you could be really elderly and still be fine as a librarian. And I was
that's
like,
right.
oh, that's longevity, you know? So I kind of, for me, librarianship brought together a lot of things that I had wanted in a career, which was to be
Mm,
adjacent to books, to learning. I love research.
right.
I still loved being at the information desk where people would just come up and ask me questions and I'd have to quickly research. Like that was like, I love that. Like that was still enjoyable. Even to this day, like I use so many of my library skills. Now, being a librarian was something where back then when I went to library school, which is like I want to say I started my master's in like 2010 or something, but we were all told that all the librarians were going to finally retire. And then no, it was before the crash. It was before the crash. So we were told they were all going to retire. And then midway through, all of those older librarians, with the stock
Yeah,
market, they're like, no, we're not going to leave.
that's
We're
right.
gonna we're gonna
There's no
hold
retirement.
on to this government job, and so you
Hmm.
literally take our skeletons out of the office, and like that's still happening. So like many millennials, I was told that there was
You'd
going
have
to
a
be
job.
space.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and to my credit, I actually did get a library job. I was one of the few in like my library school who got a actual library coordination position. I was
Wow.
working at a tech college, and I enjoyed it. What I got from because keep in mind, in grad school and in college, like I did all the internships, I did the clubs.
Hmm.
Honest to God, like I was part of every club I could find. Somehow I was like the vice president of the American Indian Library Association
Of
chapter
course you were. Of
for
course.
because my buddy asked me, she's like, we need another person. You want to do this? And I was like, sure. She's like, you have a car that's big enough for us to like haul other people. I was like, sweet. So I did all the things. I left library school because I had gotten a library job in during my bachelor degree days because I was preparing for this. So I actually graduated from library school with 4 years of library experience. And
Wow.
I struggled to find a job, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of I thought I had one before I left, before I graduated, but it was at the Arizona State Museum, and we got hit with a bunch of budget cuts, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
very much before I became self-employed, because I gravitate towards those low-paying, help the world kind of jobs, where you like teach people to read and you help homeless people get a second chance, like they don't
Right.
pay squat. And they're easily like just axed by some bureaucrat in a state capitol who's like, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
understand what you're doing here. Um, so that was the way of the world for me. I was introduced to career services because at the tech college that I worked at, the career department, somebody left really suddenly and they needed someone to help with this internship program. So I set up an internship program where I went around, it was pretty much a pipeline where I just found like my engineers, I would find them work with some local businesses, and I did well. Within like a couple of, in that semester, I managed to get like 30% of our freshmen and sophomores into this, which they were really happy about, because most students waited way later to do this to their detriment.
Right,
so I was offered a position. Now, originally I wanted to stay in the library thing, but then I got a high off of helping people find jobs, because a lot of my tech dudes at this place were first generation college students. They were veterans. They were people of color. So when I would help these guys get a new job in tech, I would literally double their salaries. Some of these guys were helping raise they were taking care of their moms, or they're raising like nieces and nephews. So I could help elevate a whole family, and I got a buzz off it. So I was like,
pretty cool. Yeah.
I was like, this is like crack. I'm making sure everybody's having chicken for dinner over here. That's great. So, I got high off it. And then I found out in the career services that they were making substantially more money than I did. And we're doing less. And I was like, well, I like more money and less work. So like, okay, let's give this a shot. And I discovered that I got to do all the things I enjoy with library science, which is research, instruction, helping people. And to this day, I consider myself still kind of a librarian, but with a very specialized knowledge in career development. So that's how I ended up in the career development world.
Wow. And then you broke free and built your own business.
Yeah. Well, I kept doing that sort of career development work at schools, and then I moved to a nonprofit where I was working with people at risk for homelessness. And I had another budget cut situation where we were doing great work. We were very successful. I, co-organized the first job fair in Arizona history for transgender people. We trained like dozens of local employers just on sensitivity. We were getting people hired, and getting them off the streets, but changing administrations, it was just a harder sell, for this, especially my role, because it was seen very auxiliary, I mean, we get them into homes, but what else are they going to do afterwards? It might be nice for them to get jobs, but you gotta choose, when budgets are cut. And I don't know why. I think a lot of things led to me snapping for that, but I was just like, you know what? I'm really sick of doing really great work and getting little letters and, Olive Garden gift cards from people about how I've changed their life, and I'll take a good gift card. I ain't too good for Olive Garden, but anyway, so, and just like finding that I would just get, it'd just be budget cuts. So I decided I was sick of that. And what I noticed that even back when I did my master's degree, that there was very little, it felt like for me, where people were just being honest about, hey, you need to be strategic. And I was learning so much doing career services, because I always had some really good mentors, along the way. And that's how I learn, is by doing and being around people who are way better than me. So I had the fortune. Yeah, I had the good luck of having those opportunities and having a very practical education into career services. So I was like, I'm going to take this show on the road. And that was the time where like I was subletting a room from my friend's place. So I wasn't even on the lease. I mean, I didn't have a dog for like the first time in forever. I didn't have like a partner for the first time in forever. I was like, holy crap, I don't have a job. I don't have a dog. I don't have a dependent or a relationship or a lease. My God, I need to go before some diabetic cat finds me, Like, I need to go. So I did the Kimber Luna course where I met you, and in that 4 months, I set myself up to where I just went off. And the nice thing was that I did that at the time where my late grandmother needed me, where she had
Mm-hmm.
broken her hip and just not doing well. And I was able to give her attention, and I was able to give some of my other family members who had been helping out the most, give them some time off. And that really solidified. I've been able to do that multiple times where even though I can travel, I go back and I can see grandparents. I've been able to
Right.
help my
Yeah.
sisters when they need it with their kids, when there's something going on. I've been able to do that for my family, which I wasn't able to do before. I was working
Yeah.
those sort of
Yeah.
nonprofit or education jobs where, yeah, everybody was like, yeah, kumbaya, loosey goosey, we're all progressive, but like their working environments weren't always like, you could take breaks, you could take time off, but they made it clear that'd be inconvenient for us.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so I finally was able to do that, and I was able to take my years in Tucson where I'd engendered some goodwill. I had clients who were willing to, take me doing the remote thing because everybody was like,
Right.
"That's weird. Why can't we meet in a cafe?" I don't understand Zoom, you know. So I was able to wear
What a
people
difference a
down.
year makes, huh?
I know,
Yeah.
my God.
One
I
year.
know.
It's only been a year. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
The
yeah,
whole world changed.
that's how it all began. And now my remote work experience is no longer fancy. I need to take that off my resume
Yeah.
where I brag about how I have a home
I know. I
office.
know. Doesn't stand out anymore.
No, not at all.
So the question I have, because you're busy as heck, you run your own business as a career coach, and yet you've also been able to kind of balance that with writing a whole bunch of books, almost, I think, like 7 books in this Red Witch Chronicles series.
Yes.
How do you do that? How do you balance the time?
Yeah. Now the thing is for me is that I mean part of this is that, and people are gonna laugh, is that I have ADHD, but I have where I get hyper focused. So I
Yeah.
can have
Yeah.
periods where I'm super like, you're like weirded out. I've had bosses who are like, can you stop? Like you haven't moved. Have you blinked in a couple hours? You're really into this. So, for me, one, I had a bunch of stuff that I had already written before and I never had the courage to post. And then
Okay.
also, in moving away from doing that launch based business
Sure.
really helped. I've been
Okay.
able to spend, time where it's very, very much I can control how many hours I'm actually working for the U of A or with students or with these bigger contracts. It
Yeah.
was kind of like, and you probably remember this, but when people were starting their online businesses, for a lot of coaches, it was the biggest thing was having more people in these programs, even if it was
Yeah.
$15 a person, which if you do the scale on that and the time commitment, like it's not worth it during certain
Right.
points of time to be,
Yeah.
maybe you have like 400 people in this thing, but if they're
Yeah.
not paying too much and you're doing like essentially a really in-depth Patreon for these people. And I just
Yeah.
stopped doing that. Like, and I looked at my backlog of content and I was like, why am I not repurposing this? Why am I not
hmm
reusing
Yeah.
some of this? Why am I reinventing the wheel over and over? So I looked for time wasters. I looked for, like I said, the things that were ego. There's a lot of things I was just doing to like keep up with
Mm.
the bromad boys, where we're, look at me, I can crush it and hustle and make a funnel,
That whole
you know.
hustle culture. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I had to like cut that ego out because it wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
And then focused on these bigger contracts and just also being a lot more disciplined where I would work into the night, where I would just keep
Mm.
apps going on my phone. I did not have boundaries with clients. The thing is, I was busy, but it was the kind of thing like Swiss cheese. It was spread out, but there was holes in there.
Right. Right.
So I've did a version of like cutting out this crap that I didn't need to do, looking at how I was actually gaining clients, how I was working at them, and figuring out what could be automated or cut out. I also streamlined all my services. I had a website where once upon a time there was like a Chinese menu. Like I was doing all sorts of things, you know?
I think we all go through that phase.
Exactly.
I do this and this and this and this and this.
And it's confusing. I figured out like I knew I had certain services that I dreaded doing. I stopped doing them and I made it a lot more streamlined, and then I just started utilizing more of my old content and trying to lead people to, as passively as I could, to either products or for them to sign up for things. I also stopped doing the sort of like sales call, the pre-call or whatever. So I have a 90 episode podcast. If you cannot figure out after 90 episodes if you want to talk to me, if I can help you, then buddy, maybe nobody can. So I don't do those sales calls now unless I truly, after the person writes to me, you know, and I am unsure, where I'm like, okay, I'm not quite sure. Let's do a call. I don't want to waste your time, you know. But I recently hired a UX designer to help me make my sales page even easier. I want it to be like that thing at McDonald's where you click your little hamburger and like they shoot it out
the number one.
Exactly. So I've been doing those things, and I actually, when we had our conversation on my show, you mentioned how you have this thing where you periodically go sometimes, or you've seen people do this where they go into companies for a little bit, then they go out, and they kind of have this hybrid model. And that's what I've been doing right now, because I can have like Career Foundry, which is a tech boot camp that I work for. They have me doing a webinar, you know, every other month. I don't have to do anything but show up. You know,
that's
you know, cool. The U of A, like I get to do things with them, and I get to connect with the demographic that I can learn from. So that actually keeps it more interesting for me.
You learn a lot too. Yeah.
Yes. So I tried to find all the crap that I don't need to do and stop doing it. I actually got an assistant, you know, so I'm trying not to do, like she just does all the things I don't want to do. It would be, that's her job. You know, I think I made her even like do a dentist appointment for me one day. I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. So can you do that, Cindy? Thank you. You're the best. So like, that's how I did it. I just ruthlessly cleared out my schedule. And when the pandemic happened, I realized that I had done, you know, the kind of travel that I like to do, I was not able to do anymore. It was never about collecting passport stamps for me, you know, so it was about seeing people, seeing specific things, having specific experiences, and none of those experiences were having a PCR and somebody sticking a tube up my nose.
I know.
So I kind of was just like, why don't I like just stay put? You know, I'm not going to be able to do the things I enjoy. You know, most of my travel experiences involve like food or museums, two things that they don't want you. It's hard to do.
I know. Me too. Museums, art galleries, and food.
Yeah, like, you know, and just crowds of people can't really do that, you know. So I was like, I'm gonna like actually sit here, use this year, because this also, like I said, the ego, the keeping up with people, you know. Like I used to kind of have a bit of my identity wrapped up into where I would go next. So I had to sit with myself for a year not doing that. And I think it was really helpful, and it gave me the space to actually focus on my writing, and focus on the things that I like to do, which is, well, not just like to do, like I've also started doing soap making and random little things that are just kind of fun, where I did not do, because I realized when the pandemic started and it was hard for me to relax, that something was wrong. Like, why can't I just sit down and like watch a TV show without being guilty. Like, I'm not productive, you know? Like, there's like I had like I realized I had a crappy boss, and it was me. It was me the whole time. So those were all the revelations that kind of made me realize, okay, I need to have a different chapter of my business and how I think about content, because you got to be mindful. I don't want to be just writing a blog every day to have a blog every day so I can impress the other LinkedIn think pieces, who I don't even care about, So I decided to focus on what I like. And when I actually do put out content or a podcast episode or something, I'm really confident in it. This is what I wanted to say. It has something important.
That's good.
I went through a lot of my older content too to make sure it was all up to standard. So when I'm putting stuff out, I know that it's good, but I also put good enough bones in my business to where I don't have to be sliding into everybody's DMs being like, yo, you need a resume?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We don't need more of those people. Plenty of those on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm good. So I guess in some ways I did a 180 from some of the hustle culture things, and I'm not saying don't do that. I know that once this pandemic's over, I'm probably going to jog across the world and probably do something random and big with my business, maybe do one of those group programs again. But for right now, it's been really, I feel like it's been a lot better for me to do this because now I also have more emotional energy for the clients and students that I do have. And they really needed me this year. Even just to have someone who's like, there, buddy, late stage capitalism does suck.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Sometimes
not the
it's
only
just support.
one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So speaking of, where can people learn more about your coaching and check out your books?
Sweet. Okay, so people can go to my website, which is samigardner.com. But I also write urban fantasy fiction. So if for those of you guys who don't know, think Tolkien, but in a leather jacket, possibly set in LA. So that's what I write. And my pen name for that is Sami Valentine. Now, why I have the same first name for both of those is because I vividly imagine myself going to a Comic-Con with a fake pen name and having people call that and just not turning around. And I was just like, I'm going to keep it simple. It's going to just be the same. So just remember Sami. And one side of me writes resumes and the other writes about sexy vampires. So, and I'm a great career coach, despite what I just said.
That makes it more interesting. Well, Sami, I wanted to thank you for making the time to come on the show. I really do appreciate it. And it's been fun catching up and hearing more about how you've structured your business going forward. That's cool.
Thanks, Larry. As always, I always enjoy our conversations. I always tell, when I'm sharing coaches and stuff like that, there's a couple of them I like, and you're always the one at the top. I'm always sharing your stuff, because I might not be making a whole lot of content right now, but you're making good stuff. So I'm happy to piggyback off your thoughts.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you would like to follow upcoming releases of the show, please subscribe. And as always, I appreciate your ratings and reviews. Thank you. If you would like to learn more about Invincible Career and the podcast, you can visit invinciblecareer.com. Until next time, I wish you the best of luck in becoming an opportunity magnet for the best things in life.